All right, so welcome to level A of the hypothalamo-pituitary-gonadal axis. I promise it's not as scary as you think. Give me about 5 minutes and we're going to give you a nice basic introduction. Let's start with the outline. We'll talk about some definitions. We'll talk about the structure of the involved glands, and then we'll talk about the axis itself, what it is, and what its functions are. Off we go. Here you can see a schematic of the endocrine system. It is made up of a series of glands all throughout the body. And really, the endocrine system works with the nervous system. So together, the nervous and endocrine systems oversee the body. Whereas the nervous system uses nerve impulses to oversee the body, the endocrine system uses glands. So this system is made up of glands. Here we see the thyroid, the thymus, the pancreas, etc. It's made up of the glands, the hormones they secrete, and the target cells that they act on. Glands, well, they're basically just clusters of endocrine tissue, and as organs, what they do is they produce and secrete hormones. The hormones they release travel through the bloodstream and are able to act on target cells. At pretty much every part of the body is a target cell at some point. So you think about insulin. Insulin works on tissues that take up glucose for energy. Talk about growth hormone. Growth hormone will travel through the bloodstream to muscles, and in that case, muscles are the target cell. Here we get a nice schematic of the difference between how hormones travel in the bloodstream. They can have more widespread effects, whereas the nervous system acts through a nerve impulse with very quick, localized effects. But remember, both the endocrine and nervous system work together to oversee the body functions. The hormones and glands that are involved in the hypothalamo-pituitary-gonadal axis are the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and gonads, just as the name suggests. So we're going to start from the top. The hypothalamus is a gland located in the brain. Here it is. Here it is up close. Hanging down from the hypothalamus, here's the hypothalamus. Hanging down from it are the anterior and posterior pituitary glands. The hypothalamus itself oversees a lot of the other glands. So because, for example, the hypothalamus oversees the pituitary glands, and the pituitary glands go on to influence so much of the body, the hypothalamus is often known as a control center of the endocrine system. Hypothalamus itself does produce two hormones, oxytocin, ADH. In addition to the endocrine system functions, you may have heard of the hypothalamus acting in other things. The hypothalamus is involved in hunger and thirst. It's our thirst center, and it is involved with emotion also. But for our purposes, we're focusing only on these starred pituitary functions. As I said before, hanging down from the hypothalamus gland is the pituitary gland, broke up into two. The anterior pituitary gland here and the posterior pituitary gland here. We can see that the pituitary glands are very closely connected to the hypothalamus. The anterior pituitary gland happens to be connected to the hypothalamus via blood vessels. Among the many hormones that the anterior pituitary gland secretes, here are 5: thyroid stimulating, follicle stimulating, luteinizing hormone, growth hormone, I'm missing a parentheses there, sorry, and adrenocorticotropic hormone. These names sound scary, but really they're not. From the anterior pituitary gland, which gets its direction from the hypothalamus, we have growth hormone, acts on muscles, bones, and tissue to guess what? Grow. We have adrenocorticotropin hormone, gets a message from the anterior pituitary gland, stimulates the adrenal cortex, which releases cortisol, and that is our body's natural anti-inflammatory. Thyroid stimulating and follicle stimulating hormone go all the way down to the gonads. These hormones are responsible for stimulating activity within the primary sex organs, testes in males, ovaries in females, as well as stimulating production of sex hormones. As you can see, the anterior pituitary gland has a very wide range of functions all throughout the body. Lastly, we have the gonads way at the bottom. We just said that we need follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary gland, goes all the way down to the testes. In the ovary, it will stimulate growth of the egg and release of estrogen, progesterone, and in the males it will stimulate production of sperm and release of testosterone. Here's an up close look at the ovary. the egg being developed, and eventually will release estrogen, progesterone, and the up close of the testes, which will produce sperm in all these coils and also release testosterone. Last two slides here. So what is this axis? Hypothalamo-pituitary gonadal axis. It is simply how these glands work together. It is a link, it is a chain. Hypothalamus has to act first to tell the anterior pituitary gland to secrete its hormones. Those hormones then leave the anterior pituitary gland and travel to the gonads, for example. The hypothalamo-pituitary gonadal axis gland has really two places where it functions most during puberty. So during puberty is where we have a release of these hormones from the anterior pituitary gland that actually stimulate production of testosterone and estrogen that triggers all the lovely things that we can remember about puberty. In addition, this connected network is also active during exercise. For example, with exercise, we very much need a release of thyroid-stimulating hormone. This is going to be released from the anterior pituitary gland, goes to the thyroid to release more TSH, which allows us to increase metabolic rate. Growth hormone, you bet we need some growth during exercise. And then during prolonged exercise, we definitely need ACTH to go to the adrenal cortex gland to release cortisol. Cortisol is our body's natural anti-inflammatory. Following exercise, growth hormone and ACTH continue to do their job. So it's just a link, folks, not too hard. Hypothalamo-pituitary gonadal axis. See, not so bad.